It was not video games that taught me difficulty and inaccessibility are not the same thing. It was D&D and TTRPGs in general. You would not assume that from looking at all the math on the character sheets, but let me explain. When these games first started getting popular, it was primarily amongst a minority of players that made up people who were genuinely social outcasts or nerds and felt isolated from other social spaces at the time. And hobbies that form in that kind of exclusionary space where people are told, get away from us, so they make their own community, tend to be pretty gatekeepy once the average population starts trickling into the hobby. And that fact was true of TTRPGs for a while until something started changing. But the interesting thing about D&D and TTRPGs in general is that the publishers ultimately have no objective control over the play experience that GMs create. By that, I mean that they build a framework the way that you might build a game engine in a video game world, and the GM, like a game dev, is able to do whatever they want with it. That can include following the rulebook to a T or entirely homebrewing something of their own design. Now, gaming companies have tried to limit some of these intrinsic freedoms, looking at you, Hasbro, but they have largely not succeeded because these communities rely so much on fan-made content. And with that lack of rigidity comes an absolute flourishing of all these diverse creative experiences in the world of play. Now, do not get me wrong, the most intense, obnoxious D&D bros did try to push women and disabled people and other minorities out of the space, but it doesn't work because the game isn't designed to do that. By design, TTRPGs are frameworks that the GM can dynamically adjust depending upon what the players choose to do in the moment. That is the reason why my best friend from college was able to pick up a fan edit of the Waterdeep Heist campaign and run it extremely well for 3 years with no experience. It's also the reason why my mom, who did not get to play in the 70s and 80s because of the stigma, was able to come back to the hobby in the 2020s and pick it up in her 50s. At the end of the day, the GM is always going to have some kind of feedback, either from the players or the statistics that they're seeing behind the scenes, that allows them to adjust difficulty in the moment. And one of the most common tips that you see from good GMs trying to teach people how to do it is making sure that you are adaptable and flexible at all times to make sure that you and the players are getting the kind of experience that you want. Is this a perfect solution, a 100% fix for accessibility issues? No. There are some intrinsic things about D&D and other TTRPGs that are going to be difficult for some people depending upon the disabilities that they experience. But the beautiful thing about TTRPGs in general is that there is a constant line of communication between the game master and the players, and this difficulty is always going to be relative between different people. When you sit down for a session 0 with a new group of players and a new GM for the first time, it becomes really obvious that a lot of people are bringing different experiences and viewpoints to the table, and the task becomes making sure that those things synergize together and become a positive play experience. Huizinga teaches us that games are not just about regurgitating a story back at somebody, but a dynamic back and forth between the person creating the game and the person playing it. And when players have that direct line of feedback to the person creating the game, they are able to improve it over time together. That kind of dynamic, attuned, and considerate back and forth communication style is something I hope to carry over with Ruckmaker games from the TTRPG world into the video game world. Because ultimately, having the freedom and ability to manufacture a playstyle that fits you individually is very important for having a positive experience overall. That's literally what the magic circle is. And while it's not perfect in general, the TTRPG genre is fantastic at creating a framework where multiple people from varying perspectives on what difficult does and does not look like can come to the table and enjoy themselves without having to worry that they're going to be screamed out of a room for not being good enough.